Two presidents visit the border for two different reasons at two very different places, and we'll give you all the details coming up, plus the continued fallout over this president's border policies, resulting in the bloody, horrible murder of a young woman in Georgia. And the political fallout is just beginning. And speaking of political fallout, the Supreme Court, actually wanting to protect the Constitution, makes a decision in one of the Trump criminal cases, and Democrats, the left, the media, they're going nuts. And we're going to tell you all about that too. My name's Larry O'Connor, but that was too big for the title card, so just call me Larry. That just looks better. It's just tighter. It's more efficient. Larry. You don't know a lot of Larrys. I'm your Larry. Can I be your Larry? Let me be your Larry. We're live on Rumble right now because it's noon Eastern time, and that's what we do at noon Eastern time. We go live on Rumble. Rumble along with us if you're watching this after the fact, and join us because we love it, and we love seeing your comments. We love responding to your comments. If you like any of the segments that you see today, we'll be posting them separately on your favorite video platform, as well as on social media, or over at townhall.com, redstate.com, hotair.com, twitchy.com, pjmedia.com, and bearing arms, say it with me, .com. And then if you want to join us for our audio version of the podcast, please subscribe at Apple or Spotify or wherever you like your podcasts. We are thrilled to be a part of your routine now as we see our numbers growing and growing and growing. All right, let's get right to it. The fallout over the murder of Laken Riley in Georgia continues. And if you want to separate politics from this, you're dreaming. It's impossible to separate politics from this murder because political policy was very much in play in the lead up to and the actual event itself. There's just no denying that. Donald Trump knows that. His campaign knows that. Take a look at the ad that they're running.
Following some breaking news out of Athens, Georgia.
Two colleges have canceled classes today as police look for a murderer.
Laken Riley was described as a shining light.
Dean's List nursing student.
Police arrested 26-year-old Jose Antonio Ibarra.
Ibarra crossed into Texas illegally back in September of 2022, then was released into the United States on parole.
We're confident this border is secure.
We have a secure border.
We agree that the border is secure.
And we have a process in place to manage migrants at the border.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
We have taken unprecedented action.
Look, the border is not open.
Fox News can now confirm that Jose Antonio Ibarra was busted last year in New York City. But ICE didn't even have time to put in a detainer on him because, hey, he was already back out on the streets.
It's a highly effective ad. It's a powerful ad, and it's ripped from the headlines right now. And it's not just about Laken Riley, of course, in Georgia, because we see this in our neighborhoods, in our communities, the rise in violent crime, people being let back out on the streets, people who shouldn't even be in this country in the first place. And if you dare to point it out, like President Trump does vividly in that ad, suddenly the Democrats, the media, they turn on you and they tell you that you're the problem. You're not the problem. Something is completely off kilter in this country, and there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. Meanwhile, we're actually learning more and more about this grisly murder. CBS News actually doing some journalism. They got a contact within the police department who told them that the suspect in the killing used an object as a weapon in the crime that caused blunt force trauma and is accused of disfiguring her skull, according to newly filed arrest affidavits. Jose Ibarra faces multiple murder and assault charges, also accused of dragging 22-year-old Laken Riley to a secluded area on Thursday, according to one of the affidavits obtained by CBS News. The allegation that he dragged Riley's body was filed to support the charge of concealing the death of another person. Authorities haven't said exactly how Riley was killed, only that her death was caused by blunt force trauma. Further details about the type of object used or exactly how she was killed aren't included in the affidavits for arrest. By the way, there's also reporting that Laken Riley attempted to call 911 at the time of her abduction, and local police in Athens, Georgia have not yet released that 911 call, and one wonders why. oftentimes if there's a 911 call for a crime, the police might not release it because it would impede their investigation, but they've got their suspect now. The only reason why the police department wouldn't release that right now is because it is politically volatile. And it's so politically volatile that even the mayor of Athens, Georgia, well, he had to face his community as he tried to tamp down any concerns that this murder was in any way directly related to his or his party's or his president's neglect of basic law enforcement and immigration laws. Watch what happened.
Well, 2019 was not that long ago. You might remember the dynamic we were living in the late teens in this country, where you had the President of the United States speaking in the most vile terms about people who were foreign born. And you had that notion metastasizing in places like Charlottesville.
Yeah, now, so this is great that he's getting heckled by his community there and by his citizens, by his voters, the people he works for. And of course, this is a lie that is heard 10 times around the world before anybody actually calls the brakes and actually calls them on their lie. That's what we're doing right now. That's why you come here to watch this show. Donald Trump never referred to anyone foreign born in vile terms. This isn't about where you were born. You meandering left-wing hack. If Donald Trump in 2019 had anything to say with regard to the border security and immigration issue, it was, if you want to come to this country, do it legally. If you're in this country illegally, you need to go back where you came from, especially if you broke the law. So now here's this hack, the woke mayor of Athens, Georgia, where this murder took place, trying to walk back his own policies, which, by the way, are sanctuary city policies that he enacted at that time. And he's trying to excuse it. And by the way, I'm glad he's doing it this way, because listen to what he's saying. Well, we had to enact sanctuary city policies here in Athens because Trump said mean things. Yeah, that's the way you run a town. President said mean things, so we're going to virtue signal and set up laws and put them in place so that it attracts people in the country illegally. And the next thing you know, you've got a murdered young girl. But watch what happens. He continues to double down on this, and watch what his voters, again, the people who pay his bills, pay his salary, how they respond.
In the main, I caution against conflating immigration and crime. The data demonstrates that the two are not connected. Because the impact of federal immigration policy on localities has been under such consistent discussion in recent months, I do want to say a few words about this. It's my 18th year as a local government policymaker, and my work has overlapped with 4 U.S. presidencies and numerous iterations of Congress. All of them have failed to reach agreement on how to handle immigration.
I say it to you almost every day now, and I want to keep saying it to you because you saw what he just did there. This issue is not about immigration. And this is what the left and the Democrats and the media continue to deflect on. This is a safety, security, law, and order issue. It just so happens to be linked to our porous border that wasn't porous when this president came in. Now, he may want to enact new immigration policies without actually going through the messy business of passing laws and, persuading you, the American people. So to fulfill his immigration desires, he went ahead and lifted basic border security protocols. The two are only related in that way. You can go ahead and try to solve the immigration problem by keeping the border secure, or you can go ahead and ignore the immigration problem and still have the border secure. The original sin here is removing the security at the border. And now when you call them on it and you show them the results of that failed policy, they say, well, nobody's been able to fix immigration. Well, nobody's been able to fix immigration if you believe that it's broken while still keeping the border secure. You see the difference, right? and you point to them and you say, look at that border, look at what's happening, and now look at what's happening in our communities because of the border, and they'll just turn to you and say, well, yeah, immigration is a problem. Well, his residents were not having any of it. Watch what happened in this press conference as he continued to do this.
That term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion.
We know what
Many-
it means.
Many of the elements,
Liar.
many of the elements,
Liar. Liar.
we are here to listen.
You're a liar.
We're here to listen. There'll be
You're
time for
a liar.
questions.
You are guilty and got blood on your head for this murder, sir.
Many of the aspects that are ascribed to sanctuary cities
We know what sanctuary
are
cities
things
mean.
that are disallowed by Georgia law.
Sanctuary policy, which is what we do.
And we contribute a document every year to the Georgia Department of Audits indicating that we do not correspond to these definitions under state law.
Yes, you do.
And no policies have been adopted
Please
by the
stop
mayor and
lying.
commission
You're
that have
insulting
created
our
sanctuary
integrity.
city status in
Sir,
Athens.
You need to resign.
One protocol that sometimes arises,
Resign! You allowed
One protocol.
this to happen.
Yeah, it didn't go any better for him. Now, what he's trying to do there is deflect. Another word, as they've been calling it, is lie. Lie, lie, lie. Of course, they had a sanctuary city policy, and we all know what sanctuary city policies are. The sanctuary city policy is if the local police arrest somebody for breaking the law and it turns out they're in the country illegally, they're not going to turn them over to ICE to be deported. If ICE opens up a detainer on that person and says, hey, you've got somebody that's on our files, hand them over to us, your brothers, and federal law enforcement will handle it from here. The local police are not allowed to do that. That's what sanctuary city policies are. He's now denying that he enacted any of those policies. Well, ain't the internet a great thing? It's got lots of receipts and evidence. Here he is at his city council meeting, virtue signaling about immigration, grandstanding, trying to get headlines from the woke left in the media about how he's standing up to Donald Trump.
the Athens Clark County Unified Government is welcoming to people from all lands and backgrounds and strives to foster a community where individuals and families of all statuses feel safe, are able to prosper, and can breathe free.
Yeah, breathe free, regardless of your immigration status. Therefore, we're enacting these policies so you can feel warm and fuzzy right up until somebody gets murdered. And then, hey, we didn't have anything to do with that. That wasn't us. Oh, all the presidents that I've had to work with, they've had a problem with immigration. Just lying, despicable. Can I call him a hack again? He's a hack. He's exactly what's wrong with politicians, especially liberal Democrat politicians. Also, did you notice in that press conference how he said, we shouldn't take one incident and suddenly extrapolate from that a problem with an overarching policy. This is a standalone incident. The last thing you want to do is, in the heat of the moment, in the swell of emotions, take a horrific crime like this and the death of a person and then turn it into some big transformational, groundbreaking policy shift, right? That's what they're all saying now. Well, here's that same guy right after another standalone incident, the death of George Floyd. That didn't happen in his state, didn't happen on the campus of the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. No, it happened over 1,000 miles away in Minnesota. But here he is, marching with the bullhorn with Black Lives Matter.
Gathering like Athens gathers every time there's work to do. And there's work to do right now. The message that I want to convey in just a few seconds is that Black lives don't just matter when we have encounters with law enforcement. Black lives matter when people have access to everyday resources. Black lives matter when there's fair housing everywhere. Black lives matter when a woman is pregnant with you. Black lives matter when you come into this world at Athens Regional and St. Mary's. Black lives matter in every classroom in this community. And I appreciate you working and promoting this cause and this movement and working with us to make this a reality in the days and months and years ahead. God bless.
Yeah, it's funny how he could mention how Black Lives Matters and he referred to, people being born and pregnant women. I wonder if it's a black unborn baby that somebody wants to abort. Does that Black Life Matter as well? But I don't want to go off on a tangent here. There he was utilizing that one incident, the death of George Floyd up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and extrapolating it in Athens, Georgia, for every single left-wing, big government, Democrat, liberal cause that he wanted, whether it's fair housing or education or abortion and pregnancy and free healthcare, it doesn't matter. George Floyd's death now becomes the tipping point as all the dominoes fall for everything that I and my party want to do. But the death of Laken Riley, shockingly, should never, ever, how dare you even suggest that her death should be used as an example of a policy that this guy embraces. Are you following the hypocrisy here? And that's just the one guy. That's the mayor of Athens, but he's a perfect example of what we're seeing right now. As of now, President Biden still has not called the family of Laken Riley. Have you noticed how if there's a shooting somewhere that he can turn into a reason to infringe on your Second Amendment rights and raise money from left-wing activists? He'll make the phone call to someone who died in that shooting. Or have you noticed how if there's some sort of issue with the LGBTQ plus community, and again, he can raise political money or divide this country, he'll go ahead and call the person affected by the LGBTQ plus policy. He's really, really active, making phone calls to victims that he considers politically viable. But the parents of this girl who don't have a daughter anymore, they don't get a phone call from Joe Biden when she was murdered by a man who was only in this country because of Joe Biden's policies. He was only released in New York because of Joe Biden and Mayor Eric Adams' policies in that city. And he was only free and emboldened to walk the streets of Athens, Georgia, because of the policies of this mayor. They're all guilty. They're all guilty. But this is a tipping point. This is a point where this entire election could be decided. We'll get to that in just a moment when we talk about President Trump and Biden both going down to the border today. Meanwhile, what's going on with the media on how they cover the Laken Riley story? Look at the New York Post. The New York Post, even you, New York Post, migrant charged with murdering Laken Riley likely panicked when she fought back, according to a profiler. So the murderer, the cold-blooded, despicable murderer, he panicked when she fought back. Lesson here, ladies, don't fight back. Are you freaking kidding me? We're already in the season of blaming the victim here for fighting back? No, actually, there needs to be a lot more fighting back. In fact, I'm upset that Laken Riley couldn't actually arm herself to protect herself on that campus. But I bet you any money the University of Georgia is a gun-free zone, because college students need to be victims. They need to be, vulnerable in every way possible. God forbid they're able to actually defend themselves on a college campus. They have to be sitting ducks. Meanwhile, over at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Mary Catherine Ham points out that their headline is the literal Norm Macdonald joke about a terror attack and it being really rough on the Muslim community. Not fair. After University of Georgia killing, Venezuelans in Georgia worry about backlash. That's the angle we're taking today? While candlelight vigils are still taking place, I don't even think we've had a funeral yet for this young woman. Imagine being a family member of Laken Riley. Imagine being her parents and seeing this headline in your local newspaper. The death of Laken Riley has made Athens the face of this country's immigration debate, and local immigrants and their advocates are concerned. Yeah, well, I'm concerned too. But I think we're concerned about very different things. Boy, the murder of this girl is going to really make it harder for illegal immigrants this is a time right now where this election could actually turn on this story. That's the reason why you see Joe Biden going to the border right now. It's the reason why you see President Trump going to the border right now. They say presidential elections are affected by parties, policy, and people. That's what people vote for. That's what voters vote for. They vote for their party often. They vote for the policies that the candidate espouses, or they vote for the person, the personality, gosh, I want to have a beer with that guy, or I trust him, or he gives me a good vibe, or even worse, I don't want to vote for that person because I don't want to spend 4 years with that person in my living room, right? Policies, parties, and then the person. But sometimes a black swan event will happen. Sometimes there will be an issue, a unifying moment where a campaign, a presidential election can be defined. And it seems to me that the immigration border security issue could very well be it. The death of Laken Riley could very well be it. I think that's why you see Biden and Trump both going to the border. Trump had already scheduled to be there. Biden seemed a little late in the game, but clearly the focus groups and the market testing tells the Biden campaign that they've got to make a show of what they're doing. But we've got the tale of two very different border visits today. We've got Joe Biden going to Brownsville, Texas, which is very quiet. I mean, tumbleweeds are crossing the border right now instead of the flood of criminal illegal aliens flooding across the border. Trump is going to Eagle Pass, where we're seeing tens of thousands of people cross. And we're going to show you the reactions right now from the Border Patrol security professionals who are noticing exactly these two different visits and the disparity in terms of the activity at the border. We'll start here first with the Border Patrol Union, which took to social media on X this morning and said, in no uncertain terms, attention, President Biden, keep our name out of your mouth today. The Border Patrol saying, we refuse to be used as a political prop for your selfish designs. They went on to say, we're experiencing the tip of the iceberg with illegal alien crime in this country. When Joe Biden's Titanic capsizes, you're going to see the real damage he's done the last 3 years. And it's hard to dispute that. I want to point out that where Joe Biden is going on the border, he's going to try to make the case that, you know, in Brownsville, I can steal his script right now. I don't think he's made any remarks down there yet. But he's going to say, right here where I'm standing in Brownsville, 2 years ago, we saw unprecedented crossings, but we fixed the problem and we'll fix it. We got to finish the rest of the job. That's not what's happening right now in Brownsville. If anything has been fixed, by the way, it's because of the old policies of President Trump that Biden started to reenact and put back in place when things got that bad. Also, by the way, in the background, when Joe Biden is there, you're not going to see reporters like Fox News' Bill Melugin or Julio Rosas or Jenny Terre at Daily Caller or any of the other intrepid reporters who have been showing you the actual problems on the border, because they're not going to be there in Brownsville. They're going to be where the action is, where we're actually seeing the border fall apart. Bill Melugin pointing out the Border Patrol's tweet here, and he says, the Border Patrol Union president tells me the White House never reached out or invited them for Biden's border visit in Brownsville. They expect Biden to cite the union's support for the failed Senate border bill today, and they say, keep our name out of your mouth. Yeah, he's going to say, even the Border Patrol was in favor of the bill that the Republicans just rejected. His entire visit down there is politics from beginning to end. But you know what? Let's face it, everything is politics. It's too trite to call what Joe Biden is doing in Brownsville, Texas, politics. Let's call it what it is. It's propaganda. It's political propaganda that you're paying for, by the way. He's not going down there on a campaign plane, and this ain't on the campaign's budget. This is the president flying on Air Force One, and you're footing the bill for his propaganda. The Border Patrol president, Brandon Judd, was on Fox News talking specifically about this.
Having said that, he's now piggybacking onto this Trump trip to make it look like to the people who are mad about immigration when they go to the polls, he's trying to do something. At the end of the day, though, Brandon, you know as well as I do, you cannot please everybody here. And a trip like this, it's just not going to work for him.
No, and especially for the Border Patrol agents, they are extremely upset. We're all upset that he is going to Brownsville rather than going to an area where he would be able to evaluate exactly what's going on and to come up with ideas and policies to actually secure the border. Rather, he's going to Brownsville. And that's the exact opposite of what President Trump is doing. He's coming right here to Eagle Pass. He's going to see exactly what has been done to secure this particular area, so then he can expand upon that when he gets back in the White House. That's exactly what policymakers should do. That's what people that govern should do. They should look at the areas that are trouble spots so that they can use what has worked and expand upon that.
And Biden ain't doing that. Another Border Patrol agent spoke with Fox News. Specifically, they're at the Rio Grande. You can see the flotation devices that the state of Texas have put in place to secure the border, because the federal government under Joe Biden won't do that. They don't actually want to secure the border. I got to say it over and over again. They have no interest in securing the border. And now they've got two political weapons to be able to fall back on. The first, which I already pointed out, well, this is really an immigration issue, which it's not. You could have the soundest immigration policy in the world, but if you don't secure the border, what good is that, right? So don't conflate the two. The second weapon they've got, thank you, Mitch McConnell and James Lankford, is they can claim that we had a negotiated deal, but the crazy MAGA Trump-loving Republicans didn't want it because they don't really want to fix the border. That's all you hear from them. And it's lies. It's lies, and it's propaganda. But the Border Patrol agents, they know better. So here's a Border Patrol agent at Eagle Pass where the actual crossings are taking place, and he'll tell you exactly the difference between where Trump is coming today versus where Biden is going.
Definitely with the fencing put up, and further down we have the Connex boxes that seem to help, but even still, they still want to just climb over or climb on top of those.
And agents here say that they're dealing with these smugglings on a daily basis. They said that they could catch more migrants crossing here in a day than they can in Brownsville in a week. So that just kind of shows you exactly what the difference is going to be for what Trump and Biden are going to see on the ground. Another live look there, as you can see that migrant now trying to figure out what he's going to do next. He'll be processed and then released, possibly on parole.
Did you catch that? Because it's the most important line that you'll hear about these two different visits. Like I said, a tale of two different presidential border visits.
It's crossing here in a day.
Oh, sorry. I'll start it a little earlier. Here, listen.
Said that they could catch more migrants crossing here in a day than they can in Brownsville in a week.
So where President Trump is going, they can catch more illegal crossers in a day than they will catch in a week over in Brownsville. And where is Biden going? He's going to Brownsville. Let's let one more Border Patrol agent. I love that the Border Patrol agents are just completely unplugged. They don't care. They don't care. They're willing to speak on the record. Go ahead, fire them, right? Here's one more earlier today, just about 2 hours ago with Harris Faulkner. 1 hour ago with Harris Faulkner.
President Trump is going down to the border because he wants to go down there. That's what it is. And President Biden is going down because he has to. For the last 3 years, he's been saying that the border is secure, that there is no issues. Obviously, everyone in America knows that that is a complete lie. And from day one of this administration, the border has been in chaos just on his rhetoric. Then he got rid of policies and it made it worse. And right now he's going down, pretty much it's the Hail Mary to save, the rest of the campaign because, he wants to get reelected. But if he really wanted to see where the areas were, he'd come down to Arizona or he'd go to San Diego. Arizona, just Tucson sector alone is averaging over 1,500 people a day.
There, he said it better than anyone could. President Trump is coming down here to the border because he wants to. Joe Biden is coming to the border because he has to. We have with President Trump a leader who has been defined by border policy since the very first day he announced he was running for president in 2015. And with Joe Biden, you've got a leader, I suppose, whose presidency has been defined by upending any semblance of border security. And if you dare to call him on it, instead of actually humbly owning his agenda, instead of saying, yeah, you know what? I don't like the fact that we have a secure border. I don't like the fact that people are turned away. America should welcome, at least there are some Democrats who will say that. They'll own it. They'll actually say, no, we shouldn't have any borders. Anyone in the world should have the right to come here, right? Biden is so squirrely and such a weakling that he won't even own it. Instead, he pretends to be a tough guy. He puts on his Ray-Bans and pretends that he wants a secure border and then deflects blame and points the finger at everybody else. And then if you dare to call him on it, he then takes it one step further and calls you a xenophobic, racist, fascist. And meanwhile, we have chaos. We have chaos in our country. We have chaos in your children's schools. We have chaos in our streets. We have crime. And we have murder. A little bit more here. Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday specifically asked, why Brownsville? Now, I want you to watch this. Because as she answers the question, she's going to take over a minute to answer this question. And I'm going to give you a spoiler here. Ultimately, the end of the answer to this question is MAGA fascists are bad and Republicans are just following Trump and they said no to the great bill that we had that would have secured the border. It's the lie, the division, the blaming, the name calling. But understand this, because that's the answer she gives. As she's giving this answer, keep repeating in your head because it's easy to lose track. The question is, why is Biden going to Brownsville? And that should be easy to answer. Why did you choose Brownsville? Why did you choose Brownsville is the question. Now watch the answer.
Why go to Brownsville, Texas specifically? Look, I think the president, and I said this at the top, and I've said this many times, he wanted to show that it was important for him to go down there to hear from Border Patrol agents, to hear from first responders and what's going on the ground. He's been to the border before recently in this administration, and he also wants to lay out the work that he has been able to do with senators in a bipartisan way. We were able to come forward to the American people, push forward a bipartisan bill that dealt with the border, the challenges at the border, that also dealt with a broken immigration system. We were able to do that. And, as I've said many times, it's supported by the Border Patrol Union, U.S. Chambers of Commerce, and that is not something that you see every day. But what ended up happening is that Republicans rejected it. They rejected it because of the last president and the politics around the last president. And so, look, the president's we actually even said that once that bill was killed by Republicans, that the American people are going to hear directly from the president.
There you go. Thanks, Newsbusters. Good work as always. Great people over there at Media Research Center. So there you go. The answer was never the question was never answered. The question was, why specifically Brownsville? They're pretty brazen, aren't they? With their ability to lie to you and just assume that you're going to take it. We'll never get that question. I'll give you the question. Why Brownsville? Because the last thing they want you to see is the chaos that they've created. That's why. All right. Meanwhile, on the state level, these policies are obviously having a severe impact. And so much so that in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul, she's really going the extra mile here. Look at what's happening here. She's moving forward with her plan to hand illegal immigrants thousands of the best jobs in the city. New York is changing their laws to give illegals government jobs. They're dropping high school diploma and English proficiency requirements. Approved earlier this month, the Civil Service Commission is working with agencies to implement the changes, which include dropping typical application requirements like proof of a high school diploma or proficiency in English. Can you send some of the migrants up here? We need them. I hear this in every corner of the state, says Governor Kathy Hochul. Watch.
Can you send some of the migrants up here? We need them. I hear this in every corner of the state.
Governor Kathy Hochul's administration recently agreed to a proposal that could make it easier for migrants to get temporary jobs in state government. Approved earlier this month, the Civil Service Commission is working with agencies to implement the changes, which include dropping typical application requirements like proof of a high school diploma or proficiency in English.
I have 10,000 openings in the New York State workforce, from our operations to SUNY. I have 10,000 openings. So this is to give options for people, but to say we are working intensely to get work authorization applications. These are all legal people.
The goal is to make it faster for migrants to get jobs once they get legal work authorization.
Okay, a couple of things here. They're not legal people. Legal suggests that they came here legally, they got their green card, and now they're awaiting to be naturalized citizens. No, legal means they came here illegally, they claimed asylum status, they're awaiting their hearing, and in the meantime, the Biden administration has allowed them to stay and give them work authorization until their hearing. The hearing that they won't show up to. In many cases, the hearing that is scheduled literally 6 years from now. But they lie to you. They lie to you all the time. By the way, relaxing these standards, like you don't have to prove you have a high school diploma, you don't have to be proficient. They don't do this for you, do they? I mean, you've got all those job openings. Why don't you relax the standards for American citizens who are here to take those jobs? No, they want to take people who have entered the country illegally, boost them up, keep them here, give them benefits, get them ingrained into society. As soon as they have driver's license, they're given the option to vote. Now, if they're on the honor system, you've all been to the DMV, you've gotten your license, you know what it's like. You start checking boxes, whether it's on a screen or on a piece of paper, and they say, while you're here, would you like to register to vote? And then there's a little line there that says, only U.S. citizens can vote. Are you a U.S. citizen? And then they can say yes or no. And it's on the honor system. That's never checked. You know that. Of course you know that. There's no police that come over and check to see. When you check that box, they don't ask for proof of citizenship. They're literally not allowed to in most states. And that's exactly what the plan is. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But meanwhile, even in New York, citizens seem to be fed up with this. Take a look at this. At Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district, AOC, they're giving a big presentation to all of her loving constituents, and watch how she was greeted.
In 2020, the CARES Act passed, and in 2021, we started to see a lot of different pieces of introductions.
You only represent the illegal aliens and you get
Well, clearly I don't, because I'm an elected member of Congress. So keep it pushing, bro. All right. It's always interesting to me when folks say that I only represent undocumented folks, because clearly, this community, Astoria, Jackson Heights.
Yeah, she goes on to say, how can that be? No, the point he's making is, yeah, you get elected, people vote for you, but you only do the business of and look after the concerns of illegal immigrants. I mean, you saw her down there at the border in tears, crying for the cameras. She doesn't cry for the people of her own community who are suffering. Nice skirt, by the way. I mean, you got to hand it to her for that. I'm telling you, what we're seeing today at the border is specifically one of those so-called black swan events that could make the difference in this campaign. If you believe the polls right now that say the number one issue for Americans is not immigration, but border security, and those words are so important, and please don't fall into the trap when you're debating this with your buddy on Facebook or the liberal who's got a cubicle 3 seats down from you at the office. This is not an immigration issue. When they start using the immigration word, just stop and say, you know what, I'd be happy to discuss immigration with you, but can we first talk about border security? Securing the border is completely removed and divorced from immigration. I'll say it again so you can use these words yourself. You can have a broken immigration system and still keep the border secure. Or you can have a pristine, perfectly functioning immigration system and still have the border secure. The two are not related. And the only times they're related, or the only times people try to make them related, is when they're trying to distract you. All right. Meanwhile, there's much more about left-wing Democrat meltdowns here, this time yesterday with a decision by the Supreme Court. Our friend Julie Kelly has the details here, as you can see. A huge, huge decision by the Supreme Court granting a cert in the presidential immunity appeal. They ordered the appellate court to hold issuing its mandate, ruling that denied Trump's immunity argument until the Supreme Court decides the matter. Oral arguments are in April. What does that mean? I'll tell you what that means. As you know, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor that Merrick Garland appointed to go after Donald Trump during this election year, he has brought charges against Donald Trump related to the events of January 6th. And remember, none of those charges are insurrection, okay? He is not accused of insurrection, even though we've got people all over the country trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot under the 14th Amendment because of insurrection. He has literally never been charged with insurrection, let alone tried for insurrection. Now, the Supreme Court is already taking up that issue, whether Donald Trump can be removed from the ballot based on that dubious 14th Amendment thing. No, this is a separate issue. He is facing criminal charges of an unprecedented kind based on the speech that he gave on January 6th that then, according to the prosecutors, led to the events at the Capitol on January 6th. Now, President Trump has every right to defend himself in court, and he has done so by claiming that in some respects he has immunity over the speeches he delivered during his presidency. He was president on January 6th, 2021, and he did deliver a speech that day. And he claims that whatever results may be extrapolated from that speech, he has immunity because as president of the United States, he can deliver a speech. He's allowed to do that. Now, the D.C. Court of Appeals ultimately decided that he did not have immunity. They struck down President Trump's request for immunity. And at that point, the criminal charges against Donald Trump were back in play. So he would have to see his day in court. That criminal case, by the way, before the D.C. court came down with their decision, it was supposed to start next week. Now, it's already been delayed quite a bit. And of course, the Trump team is appealing that decision from the D.C. Circuit all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has now said, you know what? There is significant constitutional question here that deserves a full hearing before the Supreme Court, not just because of Donald Trump, but because of the presidency itself, because of the Constitution, because of the separation of powers in the Constitution. This isn't just about Donald Trump. This affects every president. I mean, don't you think that the family of Laken Riley should be able to sue President Biden for wrongful death because of his border policies that led to her murder? Now, up until a minute and a half ago, no one would ever suggest that a president could be sued because of that. But you could extrapolate from this new action going after the president of the United States and something that he said in a speech, you could extrapolate that to the rightful conclusion that a president could be sued or the president could be held criminally liable in the death of Laken Riley because of his border policies. That's because they're so bloodthirsty to go after Donald Trump. They are so determined to keep you from being able to vote for him that they would rather throw him behind bars and upend any constitutional norms in this country, that they would rather prosecute him and turn inside out 250 years of precedent rather than have you afforded the chance to actually vote for him. But of course, the ramifications are huge in this. And because they have utilized an unprecedented law in an unprecedented way against a former president and current candidate for president, well, the Supreme Court said, hold on here, folks. Let's tap the brakes and let's see if this passes constitutional muster. So they simply are doing what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. They're going to hear arguments, and they schedule it for the end of April. And the decision probably won't come down until late June, which is where most major decisions that the Supreme Court makes comes down. Megyn Kelly, a lawyer herself before she entered the media, she gives the analysis. With the Trump immunity case being accepted by SCOTUS and what's happening in Georgia right now that we talked about yesterday, Trump may have pulled the inside straight he needed to beat these cases. New York is a joke. That's the New York case against him. Georgia is dying and severely delayed. Florida ain't happening. The Florida case is the classified documents case that Joe Biden got a pass on. Not happening before November. And now neither is the January 6th DC case. Incredible. Yeah. I mean, theoretically, the decision could come down on the Supreme Court. And if it goes against Donald Trump, then theoretically, in July, August, September, they could put this case together. And part of me thinks that the Democrats, Merrick Garland, Jack Smith, the media, they would love that. They would love to actually have a criminal trial for Donald Trump happening 2 months before the presidential election. It would be brazen. Again, it would be unprecedented. It would be despicable. It would be Banana Republic, but that's how desperate they are. So now the fun begins. Watch how they reacted. We'll start with CNN, and we're going to grow an escalation from there.
And in speaking with sources on Trump's legal team, they're still not confident they're going to win on the merits of this issue of absolute presidential immunity, but they know they are winning on their larger strategy to delay these federal cases until after the election. If Trump is reelected, he can have his attorney general dismiss Jack Smith and these cases. So great news for him, but this is a considerable blow for the special counsel, Jack.
All right, but pause there for a second. You hear, of course, the framing of this. I would report the story as I just did somewhat differently. But you see, the Trump strategy is delay, which sounds shady, doesn't it? You know, far be it for a defendant in an unprecedented criminal case with charges that have literally never been brought before in this context against a former president and a candidate for president. Far be it for them to actually want to analyze every possible legal and constitutional aspect of this thing and have a nice, lengthy trial so that they can take their time in defending themselves. It's not their fault that Biden, Merrick Garland, and Jack Smith waited until the 4th year of his presidency to bring these charges. January 6th happened over 3 years ago. And it took them over 2.5 years to bring these charges. That's not Donald Trump's fault. That's not the defendant's fault. And now you've got the media, you've got Democrats, you've got legal analysts saying, let's go. You've got Jack Smith, the prosecutor. Time is of the essence. Why? You see, if this isn't a political case against Donald Trump, then the election day shouldn't matter. If all you care about is truth, justice, and the American way, if all you care about is the law, then election day is irrelevant. You see, election day is a political mechanism. And by wanting to move this along and speed it up, it tells me that you don't have the law as your primary consideration. You have politics as your primary consideration. And as a special prosecutor, as a Justice Department, when you're putting politics ahead of right and wrong and law and order, maybe I'm naive, but that's not the way these things should happen. And of course, the media, they play along with it. They're on the side of the people who want this to be expedited for political purposes. They don't care about the law. They're just like Jack Smith. They're just like Merrick Garland. They're just like Joe Biden. They only care about stopping Donald Trump. But more importantly, if I may, not even about stopping Donald Trump. It's about stopping you from being able to vote for who you want to vote for. You're the problem as far as these people are concerned. Just watch.
Jack Smith. This is the second time the Supreme Court has rejected his pleas to just weigh in and quickly resolve this question of immunity so he can move along with his case. As you noted, these oral arguments are not until April 22nd. So we expect we probably won't get a decision until late June. The judge overseeing the federal election subversion case has said she would want to give the two sides 2 months to prepare for trial, which pushes it into the late summer, Anderson, and just makes it not impossible, but much less likely that this trial will go before November.
So the oral argument set for the week of April 22nd, how does that schedule fit with the former president's other legal proceedings?
Whew, Anderson, I'm going to need the help of our handy calendar graphic to go through all of this. It is so complicated. We know the first criminal trial that Trump is expected to face is in late March. It begins on March 25th. That is the so-called hush money case. The district attorney, though, frames this as an election interference case. They argue that the hush money Trump paid to former adult film star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election was meant to interfere with that election, to influence it. Now, that trial is expected to go until maybe early May.
I'm gonna let you finish here, but I hate hearing lies from the mainstream media or spin or some sort of framing that isn't fair and isn't accurate. So I just want to jump in here. When anyone ever uses this hush money phrase, please call BS on it. Okay, hush money. It's hush money. It's hush money. It's a non-disclosure agreement. A non-disclosure agreement with a cash payment, which literally, I guarantee you that both of these, Andrew, I am willing. I don't have as much money as Anderson Cooper. I mean, he's a Vanderbilt. I'll bet him an ice cream cone, but I will bet you any money there is language in Anderson Cooper's contract with CNN that involves non-disclosure agreements and cash payments. I guarantee you that Anderson Cooper has engaged in non-disclosure agreements and cash payments at some point in his lifetime. I guaranteed. Do they call it hush money? It's hush money. That whenever someone uses that term, you know they have a political agenda. This is a non-disclosure agreement that he engaged in with an individual with a cash payment. It's basically a nuisance. Yeah, you don't say anything, I don't say anything. Here, get out of my life. Here's the money. Give me a break.
And then you see the classified documents case is on the calendar. I'll tell you, it's really penciled in for late May. And tomorrow I leave for Florida because the judge overseeing that case is actually holding a scheduling hearing on Friday. Anderson, it is widely expected that she will delay that case. The question is, will it be delayed once? Will it be delayed multiple times? Will it go before November? It's an open question. Then you see, of course, the political events, but the Fulton County case is scheduled for August. That's when Fani Willis previously said she wanted to bring that case, again, a state case, also a case that's outside the pardon power. But right now, these efforts to disqualify Willis are likely going to delay those proceedings. So
is it Fani Willis? Gosh, I could have sworn it was Fannie Willis. I'll have to look into that. Look at that schedule. Look at that calendar. And you tell me that this doesn't seem like a perfectly timed political prosecution of Donald Trump. Every single thing that they're going after him on is many years old, multiple years old. And yet they timed it all out in this way. Does that seem like a coincidence to you? Does it? Or does it seem like a direct political prosecution that they're using the law for political purposes to go after a person so that, again, you won't be able to vote for them? This is always about you, not about Donald Trump, about you. You are being disenfranchised by this entire process. By the way, anyone's watching that might know the president, the former president, Donald Trump, if they're in his circle, if they know his advisors, could you remind him to keep saying that whenever he addresses these issues, when he's doing a rally or an interview or a campaign, every single time? Just say, you know what, honestly, this isn't, I know he says, if they can do this to me, they can do this to you. But that's not even the bigger point. They are doing this to me because they're afraid of you, is what Donald Trump should be saying. They're doing this to me because they don't want you to be able to vote for me. It's not even about hurting me. It's about hurting you because they still haven't forgiven you for voting for me instead of Hillary Clinton. That's really what this is about. And it would be so effective if President Trump, with all respect, would start taking up that language. Adam Schiff, if you're CNN and you want commentary on Donald Trump's legal situation on the Supreme Court, boy, you want to go to Adam Schiff because he's always truthful about things like this. When has he ever lied to CNN? Adam Schiff talking to Wolf Blitzer, who looks a lot healthier than the last time I saw him. Doesn't look like he wants to vomit on screen. Although if I were interviewing Adam Schiff, I'd have trouble keeping lunch down.
The goal is to deny justice by delaying justice, and they may just succeed. If the oral arguments are in April and a decision doesn't come out until May or June, and Judge Chutkin at the district court says they're going to have 3 months after that to prepare, then you're right in the fall up against the election. That bumps up against the Department of Justice policy of not normally taking legal action in close proximity to an election. I think the issue here is the proximity to the election is because of the defendant's own conduct, his effort to delay the proceedings. In that case, I would hope that the trial goes forward whenever it gets sent back to Judge Shutkin.
So a American citizen facing the full criminal force of the United States federal government appealing a decision of a judge to the Supreme Court is actually just a delay tactic. And this language that he employed at the beginning, boy, I am so sick and tired of hearing them twist a basic norm of American jurisprudence in such a way. Listen.
The goal is to deny justice by delaying justice.
Deny justice by delaying justice. See, there's an old axiom in American courts, in the American jurisprudence, in the American way of life, which is justice denied. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Justice delayed is justice denied, right? And it ties together with an individual American citizen's right to a speedy trial. You see, if the government arrests you and throws you behind bars and denies you bail and then takes forever to get to trial, you know, like they've done to the January 6th defendants, you got to rot away in jail. You have no right to get out and live your life on bail, right? You're guilty until proven innocent. You stay in jail. The government delays your trial date, delays it and delays it and delays it. Finally, you get your trial date and that drags out. And finally, you're acquitted. It turns out you weren't guilty, but you had to rot away in jail for like 2 years while the government held you there and used delay tactics before you could actually get to a trial. That's justice delayed, justice denied. See, we have the right to a free and speedy, fair trial in our Constitution to keep the government from doing that to the citizen. That's not what's at play here. Justice delayed is justice denied is not to protect the rights of the federal government and the Justice Department. The federal government and Justice Department, they don't have rights. We have rights, and they're protected from the federal government. Do you get this? But the maniacal twisting of that language to now say that because an American citizen is actually utilizing every single legal mechanism at his disposal to see if he actually has to face these charges, it takes an Adam Schiff to actually see that as a constitutional problem. That it's the Justice Department whose justice is being denied because of delays. That's not how it works. But that's an insight into the mind of the liberal left, isn't it? All right, a little bit more here because the reactions escalated. Here's Congressman Raskin, Jeremy Raskin of Maryland.
Obviously, we can't put all of our hopes in the Supreme Court. The people need to be engaged and aroused at this point to demand that there be justice, but also to.
Whoa. So hold on. So he's angry at the Supreme Court. We can't put our faith in this. Can't have your faith in an institution. That's starting to sound a little insurrection-y. The people need to be aroused and engaged to demand justice. So the people need to demand justice. Is that how things work in this country? Can I just tell you something? I saw President Trump's speech on January 6th, the thing that brought on all of these charges in the first place. He never even came close to saying things like, we need to be aroused and engaged and we need to go and demand justice. What Jeremy Raskin just said there is more insurrection-y than anything Donald Trump ever said. But it gets worse. Look at Elie Mystal, who looks like, I got to say it, a black Q-tip on MSNBC. Listen to him undermining this institution of the Supreme Court and the constitutional separation of powers.
Then the appeals court gives a bulletproof ruling, as Dahlia says, and they still decide to take it up.
What it says is that they are corrupted political actors who act in bad faith. The reason why people like Mark and people like Dahlia seem to have a crystal ball is because they're real, because they're realists, and they understand the court for what it is. And at some point, people in the media, people at home, and people sitting in the White House have to stop pretending that the Supreme Court is some kind of benign, trying to do its best institution and start to realize that there are 6 Republicans, not conservatives, Republicans on the Supreme Court who view it as their job to help the Republican Party. And until we do something about that, until we take away that power, until we draw the line on them there, they will continue to do this. They will help Trump. They will take away abortion rights. They will end affirmative action. They will liberalize gun rights. They will do all of it until we stop them. And
so I just need to point something out here, because you see him. Look at him ranting. Look at him ranting, saying that the Supreme Court is now full of 6 Republicans, not conservative Republicans, and the White House and everyone, they need to learn that it needs to be stopped. They need to be stopped. The Supreme Court needs to be stopped. I need to make this very clear. There is literally no legal mechanism in our Constitution or in statute that can stop the Supreme Court from rendering decisions in the way that they render decisions, in the way that has upset Elie Mystal in such a hysterical way. Do you understand that? When he says the Supreme Court must be stopped, he is calling, in my opinion, for extra constitutional actions. Because he has no solution. He can't come up here and say they have to be stopped, and here's how we do it. We impeach the members of the Supreme Court. Nope, can't do that. Well, we have to replace the members of the Supreme Court with new justices. Nope, can't do that either. Currently on the books right now, legally, there is nothing that can be done to stop the Supreme Court the way he's calling for them to be stopped. So what exactly is he calling for? What emotions is he trying to stir up? What kind of action, direct action, is he hoping to get here? Who are the insurrectionists here? Who are the authoritarians here? Who are the fascists here? The only thing, and I mean the only thing, that he could possibly be dreaming up here would require an extraordinary upending of hundreds of years of established judicial and legal practice in this country. And that would be to expand the Supreme Court and pack it with a whole slate of new justices that do what Elie Mystal wants him to do. The last time a president tried to do that, it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Democrat, who was smacked down by his own supermajority Democrats in Congress. And it was close to 100 years ago. And if the Democrats really wanted to do that, they certainly could have in the first 2 years of the Biden administration, when they had a majority in the House and the Senate, and they had the White House, and they didn't do it. So what exactly is he calling for here? If not some kind of violent insurrection. Again, I say what you see here on cable news in reaction to this Supreme Court decision, to merely hear the arguments. They haven't even decided whether Donald Trump has immunity, and all they want to do is hear the arguments. And look at this reaction. Look at him. Look at how unhinged he is. And everything you're hearing from Congressman Raskin to Adam Schiff to Elie Mystal is more outrageous, more revolutionary, and more insurrection-y than anything Donald Trump said on January 6th that brought these charges in the first place. So now just wait as this year develops. When we get our Supreme Court hearing at the end of April, when we get the decision at the end of June, they are going to be unhinged, more unhinged than they already are. The good news for you, good news for me, is that we've got each other, and we'll be able to visit every single day as this continues to escalate and continues to get unhinged, and the left continues to lose their marbles, because ultimately they will stop at nothing, absolutely nothing, to keep you from having the elected officials that you want. I mean, think about it for a minute. They want to have their way in this country. And when you vote them out of office, when you refuse to elect Hillary Clinton and instead vote for Donald Trump, look at the chaos they created through Russian collusion, through special prosecutors, through the upending of any media norms and how a presidency is covered. Look at what happened with the voting procedures during the pandemic, and every single instance that they could implement to try to make it easier for Joe Biden to be elected as he campaigned from the basement. They will stop at nothing. Look at that calendar of prosecutions against Donald Trump to keep you from being able to vote for him. They will stop at nothing. It just continues on and on and on. This is the precedent that we're seeing here. And then when you elect a majority in the House, elect a majority in the Senate, when you nominate justices and do everything constitutionally correct, and you get that 6-3 majority that you've been waiting for 50 years for since Roe v. Wade. And now this is their reaction to you. In their minds, conservatives have no legal right or decent ability to have any kind of influence or say in American politics, whether it's in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, in the White House, or on the Supreme Court. The problem here is not that you have actually done what it takes to win elections and actually get Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court. No. The original sin here is that you don't agree with them, that you have a different approach, that you are a conservative, that you might not even be conservative. You're just not a radical Marxist leftist like they are. And so your voice, it cannot be heard. It cannot be heard, whether in the Supreme Court or in the White House or on Capitol Hill or even in social media. They will shut you up every opportunity they have. But again, the good news, the upside, the positive perspective is that we've got each other, and we're going to get each other through this every single day right here. We will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for everything. I am Larry O'Connor, but the name of the show, it's just Larry.